The FCC has voted in favor of net neutrality, which is great for Netflix and the internet in general, but what about gamers specifically? I have a little piece of potential news that I haven't seen anyone else discuss just yet, so let me know what you think in the comments below. But first, my opinion. I'm Tarmack, and this is Feature Creep. For the uninitiated, net neutrality is the idea that the internet is a neutral, dumb network. I use the word dumb intentionally because in the network scene, that's what it's called. A dumb network doesn't have the capacity to or interest in differentiating between varieties of information and just blithely throws the data down the pipe to the recipient at the other end. And everyone by this point has heard the news and subsequent rejoicing on Facebook, Reddit, YouTube, etc. We all know that this new ruling will keep our Netflix fast, and honestly, if you read the news articles, that's kind of all they mention. Unfortunately, most people don't quite realize just how impactful this change actually is. For gamers, the change is a huge protective measure. Throughout the last few years, we've seen bandwidth throttling of YouTube and Twitch.tv from some internet service providers. Users would run a speed test showing a very nice, healthy connection and then attempt to watch Twitch streams only to be greeted by choppy performance. Netflix got around this issue by paying the large ISPs in the US to avoid being throttled. And I suspect that Twitch is probably in the same boat. In case anyone's watching who doesn't know what throttling is, it's when an internet service provider slows down certain types of content to reduce the bandwidth use on their network. So your email comes just as fast, but the Twitch streams get less dedicated pipe and are thus poorer in performance.
Well done. Here come the test results. You are a horrible person.
But all of that wonderful news aside, there's actually something else that I wanted to talk to you about. A little piece of news that nobody else has mentioned so far. Well, nobody except Google about a month ago. Let's talk about Section 224 of the Communications Act 1934. No, don't click away, I'll make this interesting, I promise. This whole net neutrality vote circles around something called Title II, which is the designation of essential public utilities. These public utilities work on the basis of public infrastructure, which is often funded in whole or in part by the federal government. As a result of that level of funding, the feds have certain expectations that utility companies will play nice in the sandbox. In Google's support of net neutrality, they mention Section 224 of the Act, which is the section that discusses pole attachments. Now, it doesn't mean only utility poles, but also ducts, conduits, and other infrastructure-related methods of laying cable. And by being classified as Title II carriers, they're now required by law to allow other companies with the same classification use of their utility poles and conduits. You might be asking yourself, where the heck are you going with this? It's very, very simple. Right now, game companies are moving in the direction of video game streaming. This is clearly superior to retail purchase in a lot of ways for the companies, reasons such as piracy, manufacturing, etc. But it has one rather significant problem: the latency of the network. Latency, of course, is the time it takes for a packet of data to leave one location and get to its destination. The thing to understand about latency is that it often isn't the long distance that causes the greatest latency issues, because that long distance is traversed via fiber, which of course transmits at the speed of light. Rather, the problem is often referred to as last mile latency. Once your connection reaches the end of the fiber, it is transmitted over copper wire throughout your local area to get to your house. This is the slow part of the network. Well, if the ISPs are now required by law to provide access to their conduits and utility poles to new competitors in the ISP market, it's not just possible but inevitable that new competition, even outside of Google Fiber, will spring up. Local high-speed ISPs, such as those in smaller US cities who are frustrated by the monopoly of Comcast and Time Warner. And because of their locality, these smaller service providers will be focused almost entirely on the last mile because that area is their bread and butter. And if you do any reading on these little local ISPs, you'll find out that they're all doing last mile fiber, not copper. Copper is still used only because it's already there and upgrading it all is expensive. It's one of the major hardware features currently holding the internet back.
Why not invent a special safety door that won't hit you on the butt on the way out because you are fired? Now you test subject, you're doing fine.
So, what am I telling you? The FCC has just put the United States of America on a path to low-latency video game streaming. Now, whether you believe that playing games not actually running on your gaming box but just streaming from somewhere else in the world is a good thing or not, that remains to be seen and discussed. What do you think about how these changes will affect gamers going forward? Drop me a line down below. Hit that subscribe button to keep up with the weekly Feature Creep show uploaded every Friday. That's all I have to say. Tarmack out.